Hey there. It's time for the Dental Practice Fixers podcast. I'm Dr. Richard Maddow, co-founder of the Maddow Center for Dental Practice Success. And thanks so much for being with me on this episode. We took a little brief break last week, but now I'm back with lots of good stuff, really interesting stuff. And of course, our mystery shopper calls. If you want to get even more, and I mean some great dental practice tips, information on discounts for supplies and equipment and services, free webinars, all that stuff right to your inbox, just sign up for my e-newsletter. Go to maddow.com/tips, madow.com/tips. And hey, we'll be even better friends. But for now, we're on the podcast. But speaking of the newsletter, that you can get by going to matter.com/tips, the e-newsletter. Subscribers always ask me, where do you come up with all of this material that's helping us in our dental practice? And I'll say this, and I'm about to give you an example, which is why I brought it up. You've got to always have your eyes open. Everything you do in life, every transaction, every communication, there are dental practice lessons in everything. Did something go great? Let's learn from it. Did something go smoothly? Let's learn from it. Did something go poorly? Let's learn from it. How were you treated when you got your hair cut or when you went to the grocery store or when you went to the car dealership for your maintenance visit? How did somebody react when you talk to them at your condo association meeting or anything. Let's learn from these things, experiences that turn out positive and give us a great result, experiences that turn out negative and give us a bad result. I'm talking about things that have nothing to do with dentistry. There are always dental practice lessons in these. And I'm going to give you an example. Just a short time ago, I took a quick drive from my condo in beautiful downtown Baltimore. As many of you know, I live in downtown Baltimore. I had to get some keys made at our little local Baltimore hardware store. Now, where I live is really crazy. I know a lot of you have been to Baltimore before, and if you've been here, whether it's for a convention or an Orioles game or to see a concert or art museum or whatever, chances are you either stayed nearby or visited our local Baltimore Harbor Place with our aquarium and science center very close to the football and the baseball stadium. So I live right in that area, right on the water. And it's really interesting when you leave my building, if you go in one direction, you go towards the dental school, maybe. Not the greatest of neighborhoods. You go in another direction, you're with the $1 million plus condos and pier homes and the really fancy restaurants. And then if you go a third direction, you're in South Baltimore, which is just a really cool spot. It's one of those areas where still a lot of old time kind of blue collar, old timer Baltimore people live and they love it there. And they're, third or fourth generation. And then maybe also some younger people, you might even want to call them yuppies if that term is still used, have moved in. So it's really cool, mixed neighborhood, and it's very quirky. And there are all kinds of neat bars and restaurants and little shops and such. But it's mostly residential, and that's where I tend to do most of my business because it's a downtown residential type neighborhood. But there are also some stores there, and there's this little hardware store there. There's not a Home Depot or a Lowe's anywhere near me where I could walk there or ride my bike there or even do a 2-minute car ride there. So I go to this little locally owned hardware store and I was going there a few days ago to get some keys made. I did happen to drive. Um, and they even have a small parking lot, which is amazing for something in a city. And I learned 3 dental practice lessons on my little drive to the hardware store, and I'm going to share them with you right now. Okay, lesson number one. Again, I'm driving in this little neighborhood, and I passed a new business, and there's a big sign outside, a big, glass lit sign, and the sign says Hat Mart with a big picture of a hat. I don't know anything about hats. It looked like a Stetson hat. I don't know what it was. Cowboyish type hat, Hat Mart. And I'm thinking, why the heck would someone open up a hat store in this quirky little South Baltimore residential area? It just made absolutely no sense. There's no way that a hat store could thrive and survive and last in this neighborhood. Just not feasible. So I was really curious. I pulled over, parked right across the street from the Hat Mart, walked up the door and looked in. And guess what? It wasn't a hat shop after all. It was a deli. And I'm thinking like, WTF, man, why would you open up a deli and call it Hat Mart? And I'm sure, maybe if you were walking by, you would see, but if you're driving by, you would have no intention of ordering your next turkey on rye from the Hat Mart. And you probably just keep driving and think, what's going on here? Okay, so I told you, I promised you three lessons from my drive. This is lesson number one. Don't confuse people. If you're naming something or doing something, make it absolutely clear in a very few amount of words what it is you're doing. I've seen dental practices with names where you can't even tell it's a dental practice. If you've got a membership program, don't get all fancy and cutesy. Call it something like Discount Smile Club instead of some vague name that means nothing to your patients. Clarity beats cleverness every single time. Just like you've probably heard my perio exam, my pre-perio exam spiel that gets people to ask you for periodontal therapy. There's no confusion, there's no weird terms. It's just straightforward, easy to understand communication. So that's lesson number one. Do things clearly, communicate clearly. Don't be cutesy. Name something for what it is. Don't name a deli Hat Mart. Come on now. Okay. Second lesson from this drive. After I got the keys, I stopped in our little bagel shop, THB Bagelry. Now, there's no confusing there what that is. It's a bagel shop. What does THB mean, though? It actually, strangely enough, kind of along the same lines, it stands for Towson Hot Bagels. Towson is a suburb of Baltimore. You may be familiar with Towson University. They're a D1 college in this little, not little, a large suburb of Baltimore, and they opened up a bagel shop there called Towson Hot Bagels. But then they expanded. They opened up maybe four or five other shops around the Baltimore area. And not to make it confusing, they didn't call it Towson Hot Bagels because it would make no sense if Towson Hot Bagels was in Catonsville or South Baltimore, where I am. So they called it THB Bagelry. Cool. That's awesome. So I sat in there, got a bagel. I'm just drinking coffee like crazy, sitting there for probably 35 or 40 minutes with my laptop open, getting some writing done, trying to concentrate. But then the next table, there was this couple. They're sitting together, a man kind of facing me, a woman, all I could see was her back. And I was going to say they were having a conversation, but they weren't having a conversation. It was more like a soliloquy or a monologue. I mean, this guy was talking non-stop. I couldn't even tell what he was talking about because he was speaking in some, I think it was an African dialect. It was absolutely beautiful. It sounded like a song or like poetry. It was so beautiful, but I couldn't tell what the guy was talking about. But I can tell you one thing. If you're talking nonstop, uninterrupted for 30 minutes, and the person you're talking to is not making a word and barely nodding their head, either you're the most interesting person in the world. I'd say there's about a 1% chance of that. Or you're boring the hell out of them. Probably a 99% chance of that. If you are talking, 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 and the other person's not responding or engaging in the conversation, you gotta stop because you are boring them. You're just, as my dad used to say, you're talking to hear yourself talk. Dental lesson. Most dentists and team members talk way too much when explaining treatment or financing or insurance. There's like this dental thing we do. If there's a tenth of a second of open time, we have to say something. We just keep talking and talking and talking. And chances are, if you're talking nonstop for an extended period of time and they're not saying anything or asking anything, you are just confusing and boring them. Don't do it. Whether you're explaining treatment, financing options, insurance, appointments, anything. Keep it brief, keep it clear, make it easy to understand. Ask open ended questions so they have to respond and tell you something. Don't ask yes or no questions. Involve them in the conversation at a level they understand. Lesson number two, don't be the bagel shop guy. Wow. Could there be one more lesson in this tiny little trip to get keys made at my local hardware store? Yes. After the bagel, I stopped by our little local grocery store. I saw in my morning email, they send out an email like a flyer every few days about their specials. And Cento sardines were on sale. Yum. I mean, sardines, they are delicious. They're nutritious. They're full of good stuff, fish oils, and they're packed in olive oil and they stink up the whole house. What could be better than that? So I'm like all excited. Cento sardines are on sale. Then I go and the shelf was empty. Okay, it's a first world problem. I know it's not that big of a deal. But the point is, I was disappointed. And nobody likes to be disappointed. No matter how small or how large or how first world of a problem it is, we don't like to be disappointed. So the lesson here is don't disappoint your patients. Always keep your word. Always run on time. Don't hurt people. Make people feel heard and important. Disappointment sucks. I don't care if it's a can of sardines or a bad dental appointment. Disappointment sucks. Okay. Those are my three little lessons. And my main lesson from this is, as I said at the beginning, always keep your eyes and ears open. When something's really great in your life, take it back to the dental practice. When something doesn't go well in an interaction with someone else or a business or a person or whatever, learn from it and take the positive lesson you learned back to your dental practice. Let's move on to our mystery shopper calls. A couple of quick notes. You might not know this, but gold, yes, gold, the precious metal that some dental restorations are made of, and all precious metals for that example are at an almost all-time high. The prices are super high. So if you haven't done it yet, now is the time to send in your scrap and get a big check. Mucho dinero, righteous bucks, whatever you want to call it, but don't get ripped off. And I'm sorry, I hate to say bad things about people, but most of the companies that do this dental scrap refinement are ripping you off. They charge huge surcharges and shipping fees and these equations that nobody could possibly understand. Don't do it. My buddy Alan Katz at Southern Dental Refining pays the absolute most for dental scrap. Go to maddow.com/gold, madow.com/gold, GOLD. Get a label. He'll send you a prepaid label. You just throw it on a lab box or an Amazon box, throw your dental scrap in there. It doesn't have to be gold. It can be all different kinds of dental scrap. It's worth more than it's ever been worth. He will send you, I guarantee you, the absolute most that anybody will. We've had some Maddow friends who have gotten checks from him for $6,000, $7,000. It's awesome. Even a few hundred, Jake, will be unbelievable. So go to maddow.com/gold, get the whole thing started, send it in. You get a check in the mail. I love mailbox money. I love saving money. You know that we save money every month because we don't pay a percentage for our credit card processing, just a low flat monthly fee. You can do the same. Go to maddow.com/save to learn more about Stacks, the company we use, and how to do that. Okay, let's get to our calls. We've got three, count them, three mystery shopper calls. This episode, let's start with this one.
Answering service?
Is this the dental office?
No, they're closed until Wednesday.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll call back then.
Yes, sir. No problem.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
No problem. It is a problem. It is a huge problem. I always say that your phone should be answered all the time during regular business hours. I'm not a fan of answering services, but sometimes that might be the solution that you choose because for some reason at some day or time or whatever, there's no other choice. But don't use an answering service like this. I don't like, your answering service should act as if you have to have one. And again, I'm not a fan, but if you do have one, they should act as an extension of your practice. Somebody calling should not know the difference. Don't answer so-and-so dental office answering service. Train them, meet with them to answer like it is your dental office. Don't tell someone there's an answering service and then say the office is closed. See you later, alligator. No, answer the question. Make it, if it's something that the answering service can't answer, of course, then they can say, well, this is the answering service, the doctor's not in or whatever, let me get, but they should act as the dental practice when it comes to making appointments. They can have access to your appointment book. They can make appointments. You can train them to answer questions that new patients ask about insurance or costs or whatever it is and schedule. I didn't have to know this was an answering service. If I were calling and said, I want to make an appointment for a checkup and cleaning, they should be able to get me on the schedule. If I said, hey, my temporary crown popped out because I was an idiot and open a Budweiser can bottle with it, whatever. They should be able to get me on the schedule. So again, I'm not a huge fan of answering services. If you have to use one, that's good, but make it an extension of your dental practice. Okay, just wanted to show that example. That was call number one. Call number two, I am posing as a patient who's told they need a deep cleaning. Now, of course, we don't like that term, deep cleaning, but the upside is there's a chance somebody is calling your office who needs periodontal therapy. So, of course, we should be able to get them in for examination, right? Let's see what happens here.
Good morning. Thank you for calling Dr. office. This is Danielle. How can I help you?
Hey, I've got a question for you. I was told in my last dentist, I'm not going to go back to that office, but they told me I needed a deep cleaning, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was. I thought I just needed a regular cleaning. Do you do deep cleanings there?
We do. We do. So a deep cleaning it's just a little more in depth than a regular cleaning. It happens when you have early stages of like periodontal disease where we're just needing to clean up under your gums is all it is.
Oh, okay. So they just go a little bit deeper, no big deal.
Yep, no big deal. It normally we numb you up for it, so it really is not a big deal, just a deeper cleaning.
Yikes. How deep do they go if you have to be numb? That sounds pretty deep. Like a couple inches?
Yeah, centimeters, I think. I don't even think it's inches, honestly.
A couple centimeters. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I better get out my metric ruler to see what that's like.
Really, huh?
Okay, so a couple centimeters deep. Okay, I got it. And you said I might have some kind of periocosmic disease there?
Yeah, it might be like the early stages of maybe periodontal disease.
Periodontal, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Gum
Okay, got it.
Yeah?
Gum infection too. Okay, wow. All right. Crazy stuff. Well, thank you so much for that info.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oh man, that was awesome. They go a few centimeters deep. Wow. I guess either they're going to be up to my eyeball or down the bottom of my chin. I mean, that's pretty deep, couple centimeters. Um, Look, she shouldn't have gotten even that clinical because obviously she doesn't know what she's talking about, which that's a different problem altogether. I love the way she pronounced periodontal. She said like periodontal. None of these would have been that bad if she had gotten me in for an exam. I'm calling saying I know I need a deep cleaning. Offer the exam. Tell me that I called the right place. They treat things like that all the time. Let's get you in so the doctor can take a look. Boom. No, no, no. Not even close to offering that. Okay. Let's do another one. I know this one's going to do better. I just can feel it.
Office. This is Dana.
I've got a question for you. At my last dental checkup, it was at a different office, but they told me I needed a deep cleaning. And I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but is that something like most dental offices do? Do you do deep cleanings?
It's possible if that's what you need to have done. Like if you have buildup that can't be removed with just a generalized cleaning, there's different levels and stages to that.
Okay, so you do that?
It depends on the situation.
What would
Let
the
me put it this
situation
way:
be?
we don't have a hygienist over here. We would be happy we can do your exam and your X-rays, and Dr. could determine if it's something that he can do here. But until we examine you, I can't tell you 100% for sure.
I see. So if I needed a deep cleaning, you would have to send me to a hygienist?
Not necessarily. I mean, if it's something that he can do here and you wouldn't need a specialist, like a periodontist, if it's some sort of complicated situation, or he may be able to do it here, I don't know until he examines you.
Okay, I see. That makes sense. Well, great.
Yes,
well, thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Wow. Okay, not having a hygienist, that's a different topic altogether. Maybe we can get into that as the main topic on a future. Any dentist who says, I like doing cleanings, that's like the same as saying, I like to trim my own dyes. I mean, come on, you gotta be kidding me, man. Again, topic for another day. But talk about like asking open-ended questions like I was discussing before. She did the opposite, just like made a statement and then stopped, and there was just nobody had anything to say. I thought it was kind of weird. So I don't think she was that friendly or that good, but she did say we need to get you in for an examination. That was correct. She gave some wacko info. I didn't like her persona, but she did say almost towards the end of the call, we need to get you in for an examination. What an opportunity to make the appointment, but she just didn't take that next step and say, when's your availability? Or we can see you tomorrow at 3 and Friday at 1 or nothing. She knew she had to get me in, but she just did nothing. Ah, total failure. Okay, there we go. 3 calls, 1 answering service that was kind of weak, and 2 people who gave varying responses of variable accuracy, but neither. And both knew that the next step was an exam, right? Both knew it, but neither even offer me the opportunities to take advantage of that. So don't do this in your practice. I hope you're listening to these at team meetings and reviewing the calls and saying, how can we do better in this practice? Because I want you to do better. I really do. If you have any questions, you can just email me at Rich, R-I-C-H, at Madow, M-A-D-O-W.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And I want to end with a little bit of a tribute of sorts. Some of you know that one of the coolest dental teachers and guys and key opinion leaders, Dr. Bob Pick, passed away just a short time ago. If you've seen me lecture, you might even remember that I include his PPPV, the Pick post-procedure video, as part of my lecture. I show his picture and everything. Really good guy. He's just sadly died. And that got me feeling a little sentimental and philosophical because we were buds. He was buddies with everybody that does dental seminars and consulting and this kind of stuff. Everybody loved Bob. So I just want to share a little life lesson of sorts in the next couple minutes. Bob and I are both musicians. So when we talk, the conversation would always veer into guitars. We both loved different guitars. And I just want to use that as a little metaphor. I grew up as a piano player. And piano is still my main instrument, but in college I picked up the guitar. I was actually given the guitar as a gift. I'm left-handed. I was given a right-handed guitar as a gift, and I've played guitar right-handed ever since. So, and since I had such a piano background, it came pretty easy to me. And within the next few months, I was playing in coffee houses on guitar and vocals, and then joined some bands. And then I opened up my dental practice and started doing pretty well. And that got me interested in buying neat guitars. And over the years, I probably bought and sold 50 guitars. And some of them were really nice high-end instruments, and some of them were clunkers, and they were all fun. But I still remember when I bought my very first expensive guitar, a Taylor 514 CE, beautiful guitar. And the guy at the shop and just about everyone else said, okay, now I'm going to give you some instructions. First of all, always keep the guitar in the case. That way it'll stay in good condition. Always keep it in the case, always keep it in the case, and never keep it out of the case. And also, when your band plays some gigs, you might want to take one of your more beat up guitars because, you want to keep this one in great condition. And so, guitars that stay in cases don't get played. So what's the point? So I took my Taylor 514 CE out of the case and I put it on a little stand. It could be in my bedroom or my living room sometimes. I kept it on a stand in my house, and every time I walked by, I'd pick it up because it was there right in front of me. And I picked it up and I played some songs. And sometimes I banged into it or kicked it and it would fall and get scratched. And then I started bringing it to gigs. And I got to tell you, this band I was in, we weren't exactly playing Madison Square Garden. So it got some rough handling, fell off the stage a few times. And I'm a really heavy-handed guitar player too. And before long, it was banged up and dinged and kind of looked like Willie Nelson's guitar with almost that big hole in the top. So was my great, most expensive guitar I ever had bought at that time in good shape? No, it was in horrible shape, but I got to enjoy it. I got to play it. And then years later, I gave that guitar to my son, Stephen, when he graduated college, along with a little note. And now my beat up old guitar is his go-to guitar as well. And it's hanging on his wall and it's probably getting more beat up, but he loves that guitar and it still sounds great. And it just has so much emotion and resonance with me. So recently, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I got another dream guitar, Gibson Hummingbird, which I just love. And I could keep it in the case and keep it in perfect condition, but absolutely not. You better believe that guitar is already dinged up and scratched and on its way to being beat to shreds. And you know what? I'm enjoying every second of it. And I really thought of it because my friend, Dr. Bob Pick, now sadly the late Dr. Bob Pick had a Gibson Hummingbird as well. And we used to talk about how much we loved these guitars. So here's the lesson. Here's the metaphor. A guitar that never gets played stays in good shape, but it never makes any music. What's the good of having a beautiful guitar that never makes any music? That's not what they're for. And life works the same way. If you spend your time trying to keep everything safe, unscratched, unscathed, unrisked, whatever, you'll get close to the end and realize you never really lived as much as you should. So my lesson today, along with the other dental lessons, play your metaphorical guitar or whatever your version is of that. Take the risks, get some scratches. And when you do, it means that you've played some songs that will be worth remembering. And that's what our friend Dr. Bob Pick did. So let's end the podcast on that note. Go get scratched up like my old guitars did. Take some chances, have some fun. Don't do anything that crazy, of course. Be careful, but take your metaphorical guitar out of the case. I'm Dr. Richard Maddow, co-founder of the Maddow Center for Dental Practice Success. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Dental Practice Fixers. Want more? Get our newsletter, maddow.com/tips. I've got a ton of speaking gigs coming up this year, so I hope to see you somewhere soon. Thanks for listening.